Yes.
Yeah, I will introduce you and then your talk and then questions at the end.
Okay. Right. Got it.
Good morning, everyone. We welcome you all to Ortho TV Spiritual Saturday webinar. And to introduce today's topic and the speaker, I hand over to our moderator, Dr. Dhiren Ganjwala, President of the Pediatric Orthopedic Society of India.
Thank you, Neeraj, and good morning to everyone. Warm welcome to Spiritual Saturday session on the cold Saturday morning. It's my pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Swami Chidananda. He is a spiritual person, seeker, but over and above that, he is a well-known speaker and the author for last 30 years. Actually, he began his career in engineering. He received his Bachelor of Engineering qualification from Mysore University and then M.Tech from IIT Chennai. But while he was studying, he got interested into the Upanishad, and then he joined Swami Chinmayananji and J. Krishnamurti organization. For 6 years, he taught Upanishad and Gita at USA University to the seekers. Since 2006, he heads the Fowai Forum. Fowai stands for Flame of Who Am I? It's an NGO whose mission is to share and spread the philosophical and spiritual knowledge. Swamiji is known for his presentations on various topics. Now, what he does is like he combines the mythological or the scripture with the current topics. He has been invited at various prestigious institutes like IITs, IIM, and International School of Business at Hyderabad. In addition to this educational institute, he has also delivered talks at many corporate bodies like Microsoft, Tata Steel, Infosys, and Capgemini. He has authored 10 books. He came to our forum before 2 weeks and he spoke on spiritual intelligence. We all enjoyed his talk and a lot of colleagues shared positive feedback about his talk. Today he is going to speak on a topic which is relatively a new topic, and that's a spiritual intelligence. We all know about IQ and EQ, but very few of us are aware about spiritual quotient. So let's learn from Swamiji about the same. So with this, I hand over to Swamiji for his enlightenment of the spiritual intelligence. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Over
Namaste.
to you.
Sure.
Welcome,
Namaste,
sir.
everybody. Good morning to everyone in India. And it is a great joy for me to be associated with Ortho TV. And I am already quite impressed with the knowledge of the coordinators who are putting this in place. They are already well informed of the topics on which speakers like me come and speak. So that wonderful challenge makes the speakers also stay on their toes and deliver better than otherwise. It is indeed delightful to come on the screen this morning and share some thoughts on spiritual intelligence. It is now established beyond the pale of any doubt that we human beings have multiple intelligences. And this very recognition has a spiritual quality to it. Because in the good old days, 100 years ago or even before, people used to judge each other based simply on IQ or some street smartness and whatnot. That was very unfair. Today there is increased awareness that we cannot judge another person simply based on one or two skills. That person, lady or man, may be weak in one respect, but who knows, he or she may have some other strength which is very enviable, which is much coveted. Therefore, judgmentalism gets a big blow in the discovery of new kinds of intelligence. Intelligences are many, like once more. However, the scholarly community have finally arrived at three broad kinds of intelligence. Broadly speaking, I mean. We have the IQ, the old guy, which is all about logical thinking. It is about pattern recognition. It's about remembering stuff that are useful in transactions. And no one can deny that IQ, logical intelligence, is very necessary in practical living. But coming quickly to the second level, you have EQ, emotional quotient. When we understand clearly our own emotions, manage them well, understand what others are going through in their hearts, and manage them well, then that becomes emotional intelligence. Today, we have this question before us: what is spiritual intelligence? The very word spiritual may be most welcome at places, but at other places may not be welcome, because in this world, a lot of people are not very comfortable with the so called spirituality. We'll not go into that issue now, but let me make it clear. By spiritual, we certainly do not mean a whole lot of stuff with which religions are connected. Spiritual is nothing but a deeper dimension of human excellence. Spirit is a word that is used to indicate the deepest dimension of our existence. Like the body is a very gross and external existence or dimension of existence. Then we have thoughts and emotions. And the question arises, is it all, or is there something to us which is further to thoughts and emotions? And the answer, not just from religions of the world, but even from deep thinking academicians around the world, is an emphatic yes. There is something deep inside us that actually drives thoughts, that drives our feelings. Thoughts and feelings are not so independent as we think. They actually spring forth from something deeper, and that is spirituality. In this light, we shall now take a look at certain basic elements which we called nuts and bolts of spiritual intelligence. Before that, making it very clear once more, spiritual intelligence, SI, when measured and calibrated and put as a figure, becomes SQ, spiritual quotient. The calibration ensures that average spiritual intelligence is given the number 100. If 100 is average spiritual intelligence, then some people may have less than that, some people may have more than that. So you have a scale to assess how intelligent spiritually anybody is. With this, let me open a few screens here, or rather few slides here, and we begin with yes, the opening slide. And once more, with my background, I will try to share certain insights from spiritual classics, especially the texts like Upanishads of Indian origin. Not that I hold that as way higher than any other system. We respect all the wisdom traditions of the world. However, I happen to be trained, I happen to be much exposed to this branch of Eastern wisdom, and I will delightfully share some of those insights. And quickly, I represent Fowai Forum, Flame of Who Am I? It's about wisdom. It's about holistic wisdom. And we want to be effective in the work we do. We want to have inner peace. And these become the dual objectives of our work. So, what is it about basically? This spirituality. One of the bestseller books in the world for many decades or almost a century is the book by Viktor Frankl, who was a physician who was in the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. And after coming out, he wrote this book, Man's Search for Ultimate Meaning. Friends, let me tell you, spiritual intelligence, then expressed as SQ, is primarily about a deeper meaning in human life. Viktor Frankl noticed a whole lot of people in the concentration camps, and it was very revealing to him that there were very qualified people but who lost a sense of meaning about life when they were arrested and kept in those concentration camps, and even they died away. And then there were less qualified academically, maybe physically also weak. But if those people in the concentration camp had a sense of, my life, even now, is meaningful, no matter how I am being treated, no matter what will happen to me in future, life is real, life is meaningful. Someone, let us say, felt so, that as though brought new energy to that man or woman, and they lived, they survived the horrendous concentration camps. So man's search for meaning is central to spiritual intelligence. You know, with IQ and EQ, in the domains where we are operating, we may achieve a much higher excellence than otherwise. But philosophically, friends, even when we succeed, when we do well, at the end of it all, there is a sense of lacuna in our hearts. Or ask any wealthy man, you got so much wealth. I guess your job is done right in life. You don't need anything. You ask him, he would say, well, thank you for that idea you have about me. But in essence, with all this wealth, my search has not ended. Probably with all this wealth, my search has begun. That is how rich people, scholarly people, powerful people, no matter who, all of them feel. Because this meaning in life is something much beyond wealth or academic knowledge, power or position. Man's will to live, I want to live itself, is anchored in a sense of meaning about life. And then there are those beautiful things. You and I would be more creative rather than dragging on in a mechanical fashion. And that is possible if spiritual intelligence is tapped in us. In fact, mystics of the world say when the ordinary ego dies, something else from within takes over. It is in dying that we live. It is in dying that we are born again, are the mystical statements of wise people from the West and from the East. There is another important dimension to spiritual intelligence, and that is dealing with pain. Hardly anybody among us has no problem. Everyone has a problem. Everyone has gone through some turmoil, and what tomorrow brings to us is always a big question. And when something terrible happens in life, how do we deal with it? With mere IQ or EQ, we can't go far. It is with spiritual intelligence that what we generally call an out-of-box approach emerges. And there is then an advanced perception, not ordinary perception, an advanced perception, what others may not see. What comes to my mind is a shloka from Bhagavad Gita. Sri Krishna says, a wise person sees what others do not, and he doesn't care about things what others are excited about. In fact, it is expressed in a poetic manner. What is day to the wise man is night to others, and what is day to them is the time when the wise man sleeps off. When they are awake, he is asleep. When they are asleep, he is awake. Long back, I asked another Swami in my ashram, what do you understand from this verse in Gita? The Gita says the wise man stays awake when others are asleep, and the wise man goes to sleep when others are awake. That Swami was too good humored. He said that shloka, actually talks about the night watchman. This night watchman sleeps when all others are during the day working, and he stays awake when all others are asleep. That is, of course, humor in spiritual works. Now, I have put in this slide at the bottom supernatural powers. Any wise person doesn't attach much value to supernatural powers. Reading others' minds, walking on water, appearing at two places at the same time. Though all of them look very glamorous, they do not have much value in bringing peace to us. We want peace. We want to be happy. We want to be creative. We want to be free from conflict. These powers do not help us. In fact, these powers sometimes can add to our misery. For example, my own mind is a source of problems. If I read others' minds, if I know what thoughts are passing through others, don't you think it will add to my confusion? Better I not know all the noise in their minds. So here we are, how SQ or spiritual intelligence comes into being. If IQ, logical intelligence, is intellectual, rational, it's about solving numerous problems, administrative problems, financial problems, to decide what is to be done with available information. With available information. Like all the countries in the world today are dealing with COVID. How to deal with this COVID 19? In the United States, even as the new president elect and vice president elect are getting ready to hold the reins, they have already formed a new team to deal with COVID 19. And the Indian participants here are surely happy to know that heading that COVID 19 team is this Vivek Murthy, a physician of Indian origin. So, what you need there is primarily IQ. You got to understand the way the disease operates and what can act as medicine or vaccine and this and that. Whereas EQ is all about feelings, to act with empathy, compassion, and very importantly, day in and day out, you and I have the challenge how to motivate at work and even in families, how to keep children, how to keep the spouse cheerful. What is it that I can do from my part? Now, without dealing or going more into IQ or EQ, in SQ, it is about meaning and it is about value. It is going beyond the boundaries, beyond a finite game, as they express it. Now, technically, the physicians in this August gathering know 100 times more than I do. It is said that IQ is a matter of the left brain, EQ is something that operates in the right brain or mostly in the right brain. I have heard that this left right division is not so watertight, but broadly speaking, IQ, logical intelligence, logical beginning with L, is more connected with left brain, left beginning with L. EQ is with right. So, where does spiritual intelligence operate? That intelligence which sort of looks for and finds a deeper meaning to life. It is found by scientists that it is all over the brain. It is at several places in the brain. It's not in the left or in the right. In fact, a thought comes to me without planning for it. In the world and even in this country now, politically, the left wing and the right wing are at loggerheads. In fact, what they need is spiritual intelligence. Then the left will not think within the confines of their leftist angles of view. The right will not be thinking within the confines and limitations of their rightist approaches. Both the so called right wing politicians, the left wing netas, both of them will look for what is truly good for the nation, for the society. That requires spiritual intelligence. And very significantly, it has been said by people who have worked a lot on this. It was about 20 years ago that an academician, Professor Dana Johar, came out with a pioneering book. If Daniel Goleman was the pioneer making emotional intelligence well known across the globe, Dana Johar gets the credit for making spiritual intelligence gain acceptance around the world. I must quickly say some professors in esteemed universities even today do not accept spiritual intelligence with wholeheartedness. They say it is a little nebulous thing. Better not we define such a form of intelligence at all. That let that be at its own place. But the point that I may add at this point is if we have only IQ, it operates with certain efficiency. With EQ, IQ works better. EQ is necessary for us to use IQ better. IQ as though gets extra wings if the person has EQ also. Now, the same logic extends when you come to SQ. Those of us who tap and grow and develop SQ will use our existing IQ and EQ more effectively than otherwise. How interesting it is. And it has to be so. Isn't it true that all of us with some skills and talents, etc., work better in the company of certain people? Or if we are in the team of somebody with whom we gel, with whom we connect better. We have the skills, but the skills come out better if our team leader is someone whom we admire, whom we connect to. Likewise, within every one of us, IQ and EQ will operate better, will express better if we have higher SQ. All right. We have in our personality a gross physical body, which also is very precious. Every organ, every part of the body, as the medical science would tell us, is extremely sophisticated, and the gross body, therefore, is not to be undermined. But then the subtler thoughts and feelings also constitute our personality. What is spirit? Because behind the word spiritual, we have the word spirit. Spiritual is, in a sense, the adjective of the word, the noun spirit. We would say that spirit is something that animates. It is the vital principle which makes all the three, body, thoughts, and feelings, come alive. My Vedanta teacher, with whom I had a long association before I branched out to J. Krishnamurti, Ramana Maharshi, and so on, was Swami Chidananda. He would always give the example of how electricity would make the electric bulb give light, the electric fan rotate and give air or breeze, make the refrigerator cool things kept inside it. So behind the lamp, behind the fan, behind the refrigerator and so on, there is one energy, electricity. That is only an analogy. Likewise, the spirit, the Atma Tattva in Indian languages, is something which is not directly visible, but it is behind the functioning of the body, of mind, of intellect, and so on. It is what gives life to the physical organism. About this, some scientists have problem. They would say, all this is not true. This consciousness, this enlivening principle is not separate. It is also an epiphenomenon of various activities that go on in the brain. In the brain, there is some physics and there is some chemistry. In the brain, there is some electricity. Electric signals go from point to point. Neurons, what is that they call it, are fired. The fire, like you take a pistol and shoot a bullet. And these are electrical signals. And they say consciousness is not independent of these, it is within that. Whereas various mystical philosophies, mystics, the so-called saints and sages, have given a special status to the spirit. They say spirit is first and thoughts, body, brain, all of them are secondary. This debate continues, but we need not get stuck in that. We can definitely propose that there is something which is the breadth of life other than the material elements. What I mean is, even going by Albert Einstein's discovery that energy and matter are interconvertible, E equals mc squared. We tend to think, okay, this entire universe, everything that there is either energy or matter. And what is more, energy can be converted into matter, matter can be converted into energy, full stop, period. But spirituality says no. Subtler than energy and subtler than matter, there is something called pure consciousness. Prajnanam. The Aitareya Upanishad says, Prajnanam Brahma, pure consciousness, which is irrespective of this matter-energy pair. Matter and energy appear upon consciousness and disappear. Well, I will not go more into this philosophy. This pure consciousness, some may not accept an independent entity like that, doesn't matter. But there is something which is of the nature of consciousness, and that is the spirit. And then when we let go of thoughts and emotions, when we go into what is popularly called a meditative silence, we are in touch with the pure consciousness. And this taps the SQ in us. And that SQ has a transformative power. It shakes our paradigms. We have been looking at things from one angle. Humanity, no matter how smart it is, has been committing blunders after blunders. You know, all those conquerors who went to different parts of the world and conquered Asia, conquered Africa, conquered Australia. Today, they look back and are full of regrets because they realize that they did not understand the native communities. They tried to reform and transform the native community. Today, when they look back, they acknowledge that there were many things that we had to learn actually from the natives, even from tribals, even from people who were with bow and arrow. There were things to learn for the so-called educated and progressive Westerners. So, in countless ways, we commit mistakes. That's where I say if we have spiritual intelligence, then we would not do such blunders. We would, we would come out of our limited paradigms and operating more non judgmentally. We do what is the best possible. We are able to go to fundamental questions. An example of a fundamental question we get in Mundaka Upanishad from the Atharva Veda, where a learned scholarly disciple approaches an illumined person. Shaunaka approaches Angirasa and says, Sir, can you tell me if there is something knowing which everything becomes known? What is it knowing which everything becomes known? Though expressed that way, what it implies is there an outlook where the inadequacy, the incompleteness of I don't have enough, I don't know enough, I am not connected enough, I am not accomplished enough. This I am not okay is a thorn in the flesh. And Shaunaka's question actually amounts to, is there a wisdom where this thorn in the flesh is gently removed and thrown away? We no more suffer from any kind of inadequacy or insecurity. You know, that way the question, what is it, knowing which everything becomes known, is a very fundamental question. And I would say it belongs to the camp of spiritual intelligence, not IQ, not EQ. People with IQ and EQ cannot think of such far reaching questions. In fact, I must share with you a piece. J. Krishnamurti, the iconoclastic mystic, once visited IIT Madras. In fact, I was not present at that time. He came to IIT Madras some 6 months after I had left and gone. But a very close friend of mine and my classmate during my M.Tech, who continued in the IIT for PhD, he personally attended the talk by J. Krishnamurti in IIT Madras. And then he also went and met Krishnamurti in a small group discussion. Without going long on it, there was a professor from IIT Madras, professor of computer science, and he was brilliant, bright, knowledgeable. He was present in that small group discussion, and actually asked J. Krishnamurti one question after another, and Krishnamurti listened patiently. When the professor stopped, Krishnamurti did not answer any of the professor's questions. Krishnamurti said softly, Sir, the problem with you is you know too much. Knowledge is an obstacle in your case. Saying so, Krishnamurti was silent. My friend reported to me, and that time actually I did not fully understand the significance of it. It was interesting. But today I know that if we are only with EQ and IQ, we will dazzle in the society, but in our heart, we will be feeling some inadequacy. Because that very skill, that very knowledge, that very talent, that very, some kind of extraordinary things that we have will block true inner freedom. Therefore, as most of you know, in higher spirituality, what is important is letting go. All life we should not just let go. There are times when we need to hold, when we need to drive, when we need to steer, when we need to get going. But there are times when we just need to let go, go with the flow, move with the way situation is evolving. That is possible in spiritual intelligence. Well, some people already may be wondering, all said and done, spiritual quotient perhaps is a matter of religion, is it not? We emphatically deny it. SQ has no necessary connection to religion. People in the confines of religion also may tap SQ. People who don't go to any temple or mosque, who don't go to any church or synagogue or any other place, may also have high SQ. That is the beauty of spiritual intelligence. So we neither discourage anybody from going to temples and learning centers, but nor do we say, unless you go there, you will have no redemption. It's not so. This is the wonderful thing. As the last line in this slide says, SQ actually has wired us over centuries or over thousands of years. It has wired us the humanity, to be what we are today. Today, in spite of numerous problems that we have created on this earth, we do enjoy an advanced form of intelligence. And it's in our hands to behave more maturely, for we have access to outlooks or ways of understanding things which were not available to people in the good old days. Now, to give a couple of examples, in Indian wisdom, which has unique strength, from the beginning, questioning was encouraged. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, go to wise people, ask them questions. Pariprashnena, tadvidhi pranipatena, pariprashnena sevaya is a verse in the fourth chapter. And one of the Upanishads, Prashna Upanishad, is named the treatise of questions, because there are 6 disciples over there asking 6 questions, and the 6 chapters of Prashna Upanishad answer those 6 questions. The spiritual wisdom of this land of India has always maintained that all strength actually comes from deep within. And Gita further fortifies it by saying, you want to know where God is? Not in heaven or not in some distant place. God is in the heart of everyone. These are poetic ways of saying that deep inside us there is something that is to be tapped. In modern biology or neuroscience and all that, it is discussed that there is something called God spot. When I first read about God spot, I said, my God, so is God in some part of the brain then? Then I understood it is not God seated in some part of the brain, but it is said that certain neural areas in the brain light up. Light up meaning they respond to some instruments and show activity, heightened activity over there. And those areas, those neural areas do so when the subject is exposed to discussion on spiritual topics. The subject is made to appreciate, enjoy a spiritual insight. Then there is a particular, or there are some particular areas which become extra active. And those areas together, I believe, are called the God spot in the human brain. Now the human brain is a daunting domain. We often hear that what we generally use is only 2% of what the brain is capable of. Wow, this is really challenging. A scientist of Indian origin, um, Ramachandran, right? So Ramachandran did extensive research. He is an academician and researcher based in San Diego, California. And he is known, incidentally, for what is called the phantom limb. Somebody's leg, let us say, is amputated, but after 6 months, the patient comes to the doctor and says, Doctor, though my leg is cut off, when I'm resting in the afternoon, I experience pain in my leg. There is no leg, leg is gone, but he experiences pain in the leg. So we say that the lower leg is gone, the corresponding area in the brain, the area that corresponds to that leg, is very much present. And if that has some particular activity, the subject feels his leg is paining. So these are amazing things. Therefore, the more visible physical body, the more visible thoughts and emotions are only the tip of the iceberg. No wonder Gita says the ultimate truth is beyond what is recognized as existing and what is labeled as not existing. Sat and Asat are in the domain of knowledge. Sat means what is, Asat means what is not. There is a puzzling line in the 13th chapter talking about the supreme truth. Krishna says, Na sat tat na asaduchyate. Na sattan na asaduchyate. When you do sandhi, a very poetic punchline you have. So there's a lot of discussion in the Upanishads, in the Gita, about what is the ultimate truth of life, of our very existence. So question is, if we have SQ, will we find the answer? If we have higher SQ, we definitely will pursue meaning rather than endlessly going on and on with earning and spending, with managing situations, with firefighting, as they call it. We pursue meaning. We find more flexibility. We can even be visionaries, creativity, sensitivity, and so on. And once more, to do so, with all due respect to religions, one doesn't have to be religious. So these days, youngsters especially tend to call themselves SBNR. I am spiritual, yes, for spiritual, but not religious. I don't belong to Muslim or Christian, Buddhist or Hindu um, congregations or samudaya, but I'm spiritual. There is truth in it, though that is also, like many topics, is debated. Now I want to touch upon quickly and briefly a vital dimension of spiritual intelligence, how we may deal with suffering and despair. I will try to put it in simple terms. Normally, when we deal with sorrow, we actually don't let go of certain ideas of who we are. I am I am from such a family. Why did this happen to me? I am so qualified. I am so educated. There was a time when I went around, people would throng, people would surround me. I had so many admirers. All these memories constitute a certain sense of who we are. And generally, without spiritual intelligence, we battle with our suffering without letting go of these ideas of who we are. But you know what? As spiritual intelligence wakes up, there is a letting go of our ego. First of all, it is of the nature of I am a human being like anybody else on the earth. My academic qualifications, the laurels I won, the fame I had got, and 100 things. All of them are okay. But in the first place, I am a human being. And in human life, if there is sorrow, I, being a human being, can have sorrow. I also can face humiliation. Why not? Why should I resist it? When this question arises, rather than resisting and battling, one makes peace with suffering. One as though is with suffering rather than trying to run away from suffering. Mystics have talked about embracing sorrow. Mystics have talked about staying with sorrow. Neither suppress it nor try to eliminate it by some quick solution. Stay with sorrow. Be with sorrow. Be in the very center of suffering, but with alertness, with attention. When you are with what is going on in your mind, tears may be rolling from your eyes over the cheeks. Feel that tear. Feel the anguish. Feel the anger. Feel all of them. But for heaven's sake, do not bring IQ and EQ and to give a running commentary on it. Can you silently be with your suffering? Then something out of box, something out of the way happens. That is how, friends, now drawing the inputs to SQ to a close, it helps us get out of limited fields. It helps us go against convention where need be, not madly, where there is a need. We can go beyond or against convention. We rise above materialism because these are all man-made, mind-made boundaries. We rise above selfishness. And as there is this rising, we find connection between diverse things, diverse communities, diverse traditions, diverse professions. In diversity, we'll be able to see a connection, and that can give to us a tremendous sense of peace. We will feel connected with everybody, everyone, not to become impractical. On the contrary, we would be practical on a more meaningful level. Friends, SQ has a lot of possibilities. Its scope is vast and wide. I myself have not studied a lot on SQ. I'm in the process, but what I have shared with you this morning is certain basics, certain highlights, nuts and bolts of spiritual intelligence. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ortho TV, and all of you for this opportunity. And I will be happy to attempt answering a few questions at this point. Namaste.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for very good explanation about a complicated subject, spiritual quotient. Now, I would like to ask you something about like the examples which you give are related or of the people who have suffered in the life or who has passed through a difficult phase, like the Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
So basically, yes, I fully agree that it definitely helps us to overcome the difficulties. But does it really have any role in the day-to-day life?
You know, when a man, any of us, and man means lady also, when we have sort of recognized our way of living as a comfort zone, we feel it is a comfort zone, But actually, every day, there are dangerous things around us, inside us. We may not be noticing them. You see, thousands, if not millions of princes also saw a dead body, an old body, a sick body, but only someone like Prince Siddhartha got alarmed by it, right? He did not see something which others had not seen. When he saw an old man shaking and finding it hard to walk on the road, he felt alarmed. Therefore, in our own daily life, really speaking, to use a poetic expression, mystics use this. Our house also is on fire. Our house is on fire, but for good or bad reasons, we are not aware of it. It could be a good reason also, because if everybody walks away like Buddha, what will happen? So all of us need to, at a given point of time, we need to look at our life as, this is the most wonderful thing and nobody can take me away from this. So we must be doing things with heart and soul. And for that, it is better not to know the house is on fire. But at a point comes with a tragedy or without any specific tragedy, our eyes open. Our eyes open, and without any death, without our house going literally in flames, etc., we suddenly recognize in even what is a comfortable life, we may recognize the place of selfish motives everywhere. That itself is enough indication of house being on fire. Even in family life, if we find that, we thought we are a loving family, but really speaking, scratch the surface, everybody is selfish in their own way. If one recognizes that, that opens up the spiritual intelligence without anybody doing some dirty thing. You know.
Yes, over to you, Dr. Chiniwala.
Yeah, it's a beautiful lecture, and I really feel that what you have said is an essential nature put in practicality. What you say is absolutely right, that spirituality, being spiritual, being having a high spiritual quotient, doesn't mean that you are knowledgeable of a religion. It doesn't mean a glamour. Spirituality is not a glamour. It is not knowledge of religion. It is not theology. It is not the feeling that I am purer than the others.
Hmm.
Spirituality gives you a perspective. You makes you an ordinary person, a real person, not a freakish, eccentric, or esoteric person. It
Yes.
lets you see things as they are, and seeing these things as they are, it
Correct.
liberates you from the daily pains and misery. And I feel that is what is spirituality is, and this is what your spiritual quotient is. Like you said, a very pertinent thing, that intelligence is sees that mass and energy are interchangeable. You had a slide in that, and then you said some people feel what is consciousness. Is it something not scientific? One would say that consciousness is something which sees that mass and energy are interchangeable, and seeing them it
Yeah.
realizes, but they are one and the same.
Yeah.
It is what is Advait. So intelligent person sees mass and energy are different and they are interchangeable, whereas a person with a spiritual quotient sees that though they are different, though they are interchangeable, but they are one and the same. And that is what is the essential essence of spirituality. And that's what we have explained very well in a very practical manner today.
Beautiful, Dr. Chiniwala. Your summary further encourages me to study this more. It's a very nice summary you have given.
Yes,
Thank you.
Hetal, can I ask a question?
Please do that.
Yeah, for like as a scientific person, like we always want to first of all measure the things like IQ. We always want to measure the thing. Then we had a emotional quotient. We try to measure it. How do we measure the spiritual quotient SQ? And second, can we do anything to increase that? So, what are your views on that?
Correct. So it is actually in the context of measuring that some professors, I think somebody called Professor Gardner also in Harvard University, has actually objected to this whole proposal of spiritual intelligence. because he says that it's so difficult to measure, it is so nebulous, it is so vague. And therefore he said, without any disrespect to Dana Zohar and others, he said, better not go into it. But we would rather be adventurous. We would say a measurement can be possible by using psychological instruments where questions to the subject can be put, and an assessment can be made whether he had out of the box perceptions of life. So if somebody says, you know, for 40 years in my marriage, I looked at my wife in a certain way, but you know what? Nowadays, I get a totally different perception. And so something divine, something beautiful, he says. That's a sign of spirituality. All along, he looked at wife or son or whoever, a relationship in one way. Then his vision changes. Uh, and how to develop it? In fact, I'll take the liberty at this point. Dr. Tushar Agrawal, who has joined today, has asked a text question, which also is the same. How to build spiritual quotient? How to have it consistently? How to prevent breakdown? Are we born with higher SQ? Are IQ and SQ inverse of each other? So thank you, Tushar ji. You have come out with five your shot 5 arrows at me, and I welcome them. Thank you. So, how to build spiritual quotient? In two ways. There are uplifting inputs, passages, scriptural portions, or it need not be religious work, some writings or sayings of some deep thinking people. Take those inputs, they will work on you. And another is, in fact, a higher tool. I mean, in all our busy life, you and I have to have time for silence. We have to just sit quietly, not necessarily looking within. Even to even to look at the face of a little child quietly, without preconceived notions. So silent observation of things outside or inside, silent meaning without running commentary, that can awaken and build spirituality. How to have it consistently? So more we do these mature things of sitting quietly, holding back from hasty judgment, our spiritual maturity will also be consistent. How to prevent a breakdown? Breakdown happens because of some negativities in us. And with the steady practice of this silence, this mindfulness, this attentiveness, the negativities in the mind take a back seat. It is just like if somebody is watching a thief who is trying to enter a hall, he notices somebody is watching, he will not come inside. Likewise, in our mind, the tendencies to generate a breakdown will disappear if we are gently watchful. Are we born with higher SQ? No, we are born with a certain SQ, but we can increase it. And last question, I'm afraid is not very clear to me. IQ and SQ inverse. Does it mean, are you saying if IQ increases, SQ decreases, and SQ increases, IQ decreases? That's, I think, the meaning of inverse. Not exactly, but IQ has two components. One is logical precision, another is a tendency to get into a lot of worldly matters. That will reduce. As your SQ increases, you will not be as eager as before to get down to financial issues, administrative issues, etc., because that's the mundane world. So your involvement in mundane matters will reduce, but IQ will not reduce. The IQ will operate in a bit deeper issues. Rather than, for example, saying this, I'll complete my answer. You see some poor community, maybe in the Dharavi slum. Now, with less SQ, you would think of giving them all good water, good air, good this physical level. But with high IQ, you may want to serve the people of Dharavi on a deeper level. So IQ doesn't, they are not inverse of each other. No.
So superb, great answer. And to summarize your answers to Dr. Tushar's question, I think it's in one sentence, is to see things as they are rather than as they you perceive. And that is
Yes.
the answer in one sentence. And it has
Yes.
been a great treat and great knowledge journey, the two sessions with you. And I am sure it will let us think and let our brains work to evolve more spiritually and more intelligently with this. Thank you very much for this lovely treat of spirituality, and we thank you for this. Thank you. I think now we'll end this session. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Namaste, everyone. Bye
Yeah,
bye.
thank you. Bye bye. Yeah, bye. Thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, sure.